Well, the pandemic has changed all of our lives in many ways, and for small business owners, it means many adjustments. Restaurants and hair salons have had to pivot with how they keep staff and customers safe, and that includes the addition of masks indoors, contact tracing lists, for some, even barriers like plexiglass.
We've now become used to seeing plexiglass in some businesses, but how effective are these clear dividers? Some business owners have spent thousands of dollars on them. Is this transparent plastic really keeping people safe at this point in the pandemic? Well, for more on this, we're joined by Dr. Peter Jüni, the Scientific Director of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table, as well as Betty Di Salvo, the co-founder of the Curl Ambassadors, a group of 4 GTA hair salons. Thank you all for joining us. Dr. Jüni, let's start with you. Where did this idea that the plexiglass may not be as effective as we first thought, where did that come from?
Oh, this is basically a shift in our understanding of what is basically the main responsible for transmitting this viral disease to others. And the main route of transmission is most likely airborne. At the beginning of the pandemic, people thought, and nearly everybody thought, that it would be larger droplets, ballistic droplets basically, that are responsible. And that's where plexiglass actually plays more of a role. And now what we just see is that the issue here is ventilation, ventilation, and ventilation once more, and that's the real challenge. So we need to be careful that we use plexiglass only in situations where it's really indicated.
And I want to introduce as well Jeff Seigel, a professor at U of T who studies air quality. Professor, thanks for joining us. But I'm going to jump on what Dr. Jüni said and then get to you, Betty. So, Dr. Jüni, one of the things you've gone on the record to say is that really in almost every case, people should throw this plexiglass out, except in very specific scenarios. Where is plexiglass more helpful than harmful?
So it's really important just to understand the situation where you have a checkout counter in a coffee shop, in a fast food restaurant, all good. Big plexiglass wall. On both sides of the plexiglass, there's good ventilation. Great, no problem. Where the challenge really is that when you have it, in a restaurant, you basically fragment the space in a restaurant, in an office, in a school, classroom, etc. That's where you don't want to do that.
How about a hair salon? Because we want to ask Betty, who runs one of 4 hair salons as part of her company, what she's going to do moving forward. Is that the best place, Dr. Jüni?
I wouldn't say so. The point really is you have 2 sides, of a counter. One side is the client, the other one is the staff. Basically, there's the barrier in between that gives additional protection, but on both sides is good ventilation. In a hair salon, if you start to build cubicles or so, that's not ideal because of the ventilation.
So, Betty, let me ask you this. You're hearing what Dr. Jüni is saying right now, that plexiglass in your establishment may not be the most effective. What are you feeling right now hearing this?
Well, we're probably a little bit at a conundrum because safety has been a priority for us. It's predominantly what leads every decision that we've made through this pandemic. So we tend to lean into what Dr. Henry has said recently as well, and that it does offer and has offered us clearly an additional line of defense. And so we are grateful for that, without a doubt. But at the same time, so has clearly the masks that we've worn, the hand sanitation protocols that we've had, and the numerous other safety protocols that we've always had in place. So we're a little bit unsure if clearly that this would be the best decision. At the end of the day, though, it doesn't take away from the financial burden that it continues to play a part in all our lives, in our industry, and that also is something that we're balancing because it's crucial right now.
And Betty, how much did your hair salon spend on, let's say, plexiglass?
Oh, a lot more than the $1,000 that they gave us, because we, we needed to spend it through for multiple stations within each salon. And then, of course, because we have multiple salons, it was used up really, 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 really quickly.
Okay, I want to bring in Jeffrey Seigel, who is a professor who studies things like airborne transmission. Professor, just as our understanding of COVID-19 and, variants of concern, this has all evolved in the last, coming up to 2 years soon. So has our understanding of best practices. At what point did it become quite clear, as Dr. Jüni has noted, that it is not a best practice in the majority of cases to have plexiglass? And if you can clarify as to why the Delta variant fits into this somewhere.
Sure. So the first thing I want to say is evidence does evolve, and we make the best decisions we can at the time based on the evidence. But I would also say to that there were a lot of people, myself included, who were quite skeptical about barriers from the very beginning. And I think it's really important to say that, because even large droplets to a certain extent move with airflows. And so if there's a barrier, the air can flow around that barrier and can carry this disease with it. And so, I don't want to minimize the investments anyone made, but I do want to say that, there was a lot of reasons for concern, and that's why things like masking and good ventilation and filtration are good measures to take.
So then, go ahead, Jeffrey. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to answer the part about the Delta variant and say it just kind of makes everything so much more critical, because it's so much more infectious, and so we have to, a little problem like inadequate ventilation or a barrier that's impeding ventilation can make the consequences so much worse.
So then, to follow up on that, is it fair to say that it could actually make it easier? People are putting up plexiglass thinking they're doing the right thing, thinking they're keeping themselves and their customers safe, but actually they're making it easier for the virus to be transmitted?
I think that in most cases, barriers don't make a difference either way. In some cases, they can be counterproductive if they interrupt, ventilation functioning as it should. But I think that I don't want to kind of overstate it. I think that in some cases it can make things worse. In a lot of cases, there's probably not much benefit at all.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Jüni, moving forward here, and as we've talked about, the pandemic has involved. Dr. Kieran Moore, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, noting that we are we're not in a fifth wave yet, but of course we continue to see the evolution of this virus. Are you calling for continued masking? I mean, as opposed to a business owner or the co-founder of a business like Betty spending more money in the future on things like plexiglass and sanitizer. She knows now plexiglass is not the best investment for her business. What's the solution?
I think the solution is that we understand better the mechanism of transmission now, and then focus on what actually modifies the risk of transmission. And that's mainly good ventilation, filtration of the air if needed. It's masking. It's still important, to keep your hands sanitized. That's okay. But for instance, regular hygiene or, just surface cleaning rather than disinfection is probably enough. So that's the point now. Our understanding has changed. And I shared that with Jeff. I was very skeptical about plexiglass too at the beginning, but of course, things are just moving along, and we learned so much during the last 22 months or so. Frequently actually felt like back in med school, and I've been in the business for 26 years. Mm-hmm. It's really tremendous how this all evolves, and the virus evolves too, and that's one of the challenges we're having.
Mm-hmm. Betty, I want to give you the last word here. You're hearing Dr. Jüni and Jeffrey Seigel both say that we've learned that the science now says the plexiglass isn't as effective. Based on what you've heard, is that enough for you to say, you know what, I'm going to take this down in my salons, or is this something that gives you peace of mind and that you want to keep going in your salon?
And do you maybe spend more money now on ventilation instead?
Mm-hmm. I think that we'd like to be at a point where we would be involved in some of these decisions. Like we've asked for the provincial government to invite us in and have this conversation and actually walk through some of the protocols that we've had in place so that we can narrow what has really worked. And before, jumping to make a decision on whether or not to take down the plexiglass or not, like at the end of the day, as I said before, like safety has to be the first priority. So, you know, that means for, you know, our team, our team's families when they go home, and clearly our guests. So the only way that we really see this effectively making good decisions around this is to, like I said, to have the government, to have our provincial government invite us into these conversations where we can formally walk through the protocols that have kept us safe, that have helped us keep others safe, and then take it from there. I think that would be the best plan, because I'd love to be able to find out, if I could even ask the doctors now, is where currently, I think that's been on everybody's mind, where are the cases coming from? And I think that also could play a part in us making a decision, or helping the government make a decision in whether or not we take down our plexiglasses or not.
Betty, we would love to get that answer for you. We are out of time, but what I will say is this is no doubt a topic we will continue to discuss. And as Dr. Peter Jüni, I should clarify, has noted that you know, in the majority of cases, ventilation is key, and plexiglass, as he said, not always the best. So this is certainly an evolving discussion. We're out of time. We thank you both, Betty, so much. Wish you all the best.
Thanks
with
so
your
much for
salons.
continuing to have us.
Thank you, and Dr. Jüni as well. Thank you for your
Thanks
time
a
to our
lot.
guests tonight.